Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to From the Bench podcast. If you're listening here on YouTube or here on Spotify, thank you guys for all tuning in. And thanks for a lot of the success from episode one. But yeah, we'll just hop right into this. We have a lot of topics going through. Matt, follow us through. What do we have going on?
All right. Well, today I think we're going to run down some Stanley Cup playoffs. We're going to talk about free agency, and there's been some trades going on. We're going to talk jerseys, logos, and we're also going to make fun of hockey in the desert, I think, at some point today.
Alrighty. What do we have going on first?
All right. Let's talk Stanley Cup playoffs.
Right.
I don't know about you, Ethan, but I have been in love with the Stanley Cup playoffs. It has been a fantastic Stanley Cup Finals this year. I'm glued to pretty much every game at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Since Game 3, it's become a series. Edmonton has thrown everything at the wall, and I don't know if you saw this. My favorite part about the Stanley Cup playoffs actually wasn't even on the ice. It was that Snoop Dogg, the Dog Father, guarantees Edmonton is going to win Game 6. He says it's going to Game 7 back down in Florida. So why don't you dive into it? Let us know what you've been watching and lead us into the Stanley Cup Finals here.
Yeah, we talked about this last podcast where we kind of just mentioned what we kind of want seeing and happening. And your point on the dog father here, I had a good comment about that for sure. I think he might be jinxing the Oilers a little bit. I might be on that side, but I hope to keep the Oilers winning, bring this to Game 7. I feel like they deserve it. But reality of it is the Oilers got to keep the puck out of the net. I think as long as they are keeping that puck out of the net, they have a really good chance on taking on Game 6 and bringing it back to the Florida.
So, I mean, by the time people are hearing this, we're already going to have known what happens in Game 6, right? Like, people are going to say, we already know. We already saw Game 6.
Yeah.
So, what I'm really curious about, have you seen the Matthew Tkachuk save?
Yes.
Oh my
That was
gosh.
sexy. I didn't expect that happening, to be honest. Just the way his stick was planted on the ice. I thought it would just miss by like inches or hovered over it. But man, that guy has some good grip. That's for damn sure.
Oh, does he ever? I mean, I played defense as a boy playing hockey, right? I've made those diving plays on empty nets to try to stop the puck. I mean, you can't throw your stick. That's an automatic goal in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, you're unfortunate and the curve of your stick goes right over the puck and the puck goes in the net anyways, and you end up taking the whole net with you. The fact that he saved that goal, I mean, if Florida had come back and won, I mean, that might have been Conn Smythe worthy. I don't know.
Oh, 100%. I just thought
it was crazy. Play. So I want to touch on a couple, just one more thing actually about the Stanley Cup Finals, because I think it's important to dive into why Edmonton is where they are. Like, why does Edmonton get a crack at Game 6 in the first place? And if you're listening to this in the future, we already know what happens. But the reality is Edmonton was down and out. I don't think anybody expected them to win even a game after the first 3, let alone 2. Mm-hmm. And it really is on the back of Connor McDavid and at the expense of Bobrovsky.
Yeah, Bobrovsky has been playing a little wild lately. I find everything's kind of going past him. But I think when you're in a scenario like the Edmonton Oilers, when you're down 3-0, you can't win at home, you can't win away, and you just look at your core and you go, okay, I have Connor Brown, I have, great defensive linemen, and everybody is almost having a chance of scoring a damn goal for these Edmonton Oilers.
You're right.
It's not just Connor McDavid. You got Nurse, you got just Connor Brown, just for an example, out here scoring goals really
I'll
early.
Throw a name out there. I mean, it's not that he's leading the team in anything, but Warren Fogle has looked like Warren Fogle. I mean, they're good all the way through their forward group in Edmonton. I mean, the fact that they're doing what most teams haven't been able to do in this playoffs, and that is come back. We saw Carolina get whooped, even though they won 2 games. They lost Game 6. So I can't wait to see it. We'll definitely cover it in the next episode, whatever the result is. When we do the next episode, we're probably going to have a Stanley Cup winner. So we'll get to talk about, what led them there. But just had to cover it off. I mean, the last thing I'm going to say about it is that Paul Maurice, as a Carolina Hurricanes fan, if anybody hadn't guessed that already, Paul Maurice was not my favorite person for many years. He was depressed in Raleigh with the 2 times he coached there. But my God, has he ever become maybe the most fun coach in the NHL? His pressers are like, even if you don't like sports, tune in for a Paul Maurice presser and just laugh at everything he says because he's a gem.
Yeah, Paul Maurice is a really good head coach. The reason why he's going to
Yeah.
be one of the best in the NHL, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's coming from somebody who I would have told you certainly a decade ago that Paul Maurice could pound sand. So let's move on. We've got some other stuff to cover. I want to talk trades, grades, and FAs. So
Alrighty.
we've seen some free agency stuff. We've seen some trades.
Mhm.
Let's just go through the list. New Jersey and Calgary. So we saw that Markstrom goes from Calgary to New Jersey,
Yep.
and a defenseman, ball, and a pick. I don't remember the exact trade off the
Was
top of
that
my head,
first pick
unfortunately, but
2025?
right, but it's protected.
Yep.
It's is that not it? Yeah.
I think
So
so,
top 10 protected draft pick. It'll be a middle of the first round pick. In a worst case scenario. In a best case scenario for Jersey, they go to the playoffs and they make a push, and having a goaltender is what pays off for them. Markstrom is potentially an elite goalie.
Yeah.
He is somebody that has put up good numbers, consistently over multiple years. And when you look at the depth chart of just their stats, and I know that doesn't always tell the full story, because there's a team that plays in front of the goalie, but Calgary wasn't great this year, and Markstrom's numbers were good.
Yep.
I'm getting ahead of myself. That's the next trade we're going to talk about. Does New Jersey win this trade? To me, they do. I think they walk away with a better player, and they walk away a better team. But I mean, a first-round draft pick is a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, you can benefit of two things. One, you just picked up a goaltender who's going to win you games. Now, remind yourself, they also picked up Jake Allen midseason last year during this season.
Yeah, his numbers weren't good though. I mean,
Numbers weren't good.
I don't think he's not the future of that organization.
But he's a great guy to put in your back pipes. Like if Markstrom's having a bad night, you have another Stanley Cup champion who can actually help morale the team a bit more.
You're not wrong about that.
And you got rid of defenseman, another young defenseman, and with that first overall pick, I think if they're smart, they'll use that for a late first round draft and pick yourself a solid defenseman.
I mean, you package that and maybe you bring something else in that you're missing. I mean,
yeah, I think this is a
the
devil's
draft
win.
picks benefit New Jersey as much as, in this case, they lost the draft pick, but that's why they don't need that pick. They have stellar draft picks in the past. They've got good prospects. Their team is good. Really, I mean, offensively, they're dynamite. Defensively, if Dougie Hamilton stays healthy, and the rest of the defense doesn't, have the mal benefit of a weak and leaky goalie, that's a playoff team next year. So, and then on the other hand, Calgary is a team that's probably in rebuild mode. Yeah. So, I mean, both teams benefit from this, and I don't think Markstrom wanted to stay in Calgary much longer. So,
especially for a rebuild.
Do you get the best out of a player when he doesn't want to be there? Probably not.
No.
So the next one, we'll move on from that. I mean, I'm going to say, let's give it a grade. B+ New Jersey, C- Calgary. I think Jersey wins the trade, but both teams benefit.
I think I will agree with you with your numbers there. I don't think I'll change anything.
All right. Oh, perfect. Hey, I mean, I'll take it. I mean, not very often that we're gonna.
No, I think that's actually perfect. I think that's a fair evaluation.
It's not like a slam dunk for either team, but neither team got worse in that trade. So I think that's what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
LA, Washington. So I almost jumped the gun on this one previously, but Darcy Kemper leaves Washington, goes to LA. Mm-hmm. On the other side, Dubois leaves LA and goes to Washington. This is a 1-for-1. This is a hockey trade.
Yep.
Is it a good hockey trade?
No. I, personally speaking, I don't know Pierre-Luc Dubois personally. I've had some close.
Right, I don't know any NHL players personally, unfortunately.
I had some former friends of mine who currently played with Pierre-Luc Dubois back in the Cape Breton Screaming Eagles days, and I
Yeah.
hear
Okay.
I
Okay.
hear great things. Now, since he's been in the NHL, I heard he's a little bit of a shithead in the locker room. As some people, the terminology
Well, that's a rumor.
this is not my term. I hear this all the time that he's a cancer in the locker room. Now,
Oh, I mean, it's just watch any hockey
yeah,
news. I mean, we're not the ones.
yeah,
We didn't make that up.
no,
That's a
exactly.
quote, and
You can
it's
see
not just a
this
quote
on
from one or
Twitter.
two sources.
But I think personally, him going from Winnipeg to LA was a good move because LA was in that mode where they could potentially win the Stanley Cup, and adding a piece like Pierre-Luc Dubois could help them do that. Now we've seen that they got out in the first round this year, and there was no points production either from Pierre-Luc Dubois. That shows that you'd either go somewhere else or something didn't seem to be clicking in the first place. Because once he left the Jets, I don't think it went well for him in the first place. So him going to Washington, think could benefit him. It is still a rebuilding team, knowing that Ovechkin's a little older. Backstrom's not coming back. You have an understanding that defensive core is kind of now moved and scattered over the place. So
Kuzi's gone too, right? They traded
Kuzi's
Kuzi to
gone.
Carolina.
Yeah, this is going to give him some time and space and a lot of ice time to prove that he's going to be a valuable player. So I think it's good for him to go to Washington. And for Darcy Kemper,
Is this for Ovi's benefit? Do you think?
I don't think for Ovi because there's also Mata over there.
Yeah. Well, that's why. I mean, but Ovi does. I mean, Ovi could use the help somewhere. I think. I mean,
I think
he only
so.
played half a season as far as putting goals in the back of the net line. And I'm not
Hmm.
not meaning to be disrespectful. Just so everybody's clear, I think
Hmm.
he's the best goal scorer that's ever played the game.
Hmm.
He had a rough start to the season. After
100%.
Christmas, he was a totally different. After the All Star,
Yeah.
different Ovi, right? He wasn't different. He was the same Ovi as the first half. That was
Yeah.
weird.
And for Darcy Kemper, I think this gives him the chance to be a starter. You've seen him when he played for the Arizona Coyotes or Phoenix back at the time. He was really, really good. And then he gets moved, he wins a Stanley Cup, and he gets moved again. I think this gives him a chance to actually prove what he's actually really worth in playing with the LA Kings.
Is he more than a 1B or a number? Like, is he really better than a number 2, or a 1B? I'll say 1B or a like a share the crease option. Is he better than that?
From what they have in the pipes right now, they have Cam Talbot, they have David Reddick, and they got Phoenix Copley. I think this is a 1-2 punch shared with Cam Talbot. I wouldn't be surprised if LA gets rid of Reddick
Copley's
with
a
this
future
pick.
there, though, isn't he? Oh,
Hmm.
you think they'll move on?
Well,
Or
Copley had a knee or hip injury, so he's out long
yeah,
term. So this is
yeah, but they don't
good.
need him next year. I mean,
Yeah,
but how? I mean, goalies don't always come back good from hip injuries
exactly. And
or knee injuries or groin injuries.
from watching Phoenix Copley's Instagram, because I do follow him, he's a really good goaltender, good friend of Zach
Hey, he's a good
Vocali
goalie.
too. Um, he
Another good
looks
goalie
his.
that's underrated, I think.
I think Phoenix Copley's recovery seems to be half decent, but I think for the LA Kings, this is a 1-2 punch here with Campbell. We started Talbot.
At least not done chasing a Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
Like
It's
they're
a
not
good
giving
move
up
for him.
on the Kopitar kind of
really
Doughty
solid.
era just yet. Kind of like we saw Chicago hang on to their core for a while. We've seen Washington hang on. I mean, Washington's won more recently than LA, but
Yeah.
that LA team is dangerously underrated. They've got some good young offense, and I think if you got some good young players, maybe Dubois is not the guy for the locker room, so maybe he fits into a more mature locker room over in Washington a little bit better.
Mm.
I think it'll be good.
Just
for him,
speculation.
Yeah.
So I want to go over some rumors now. I mean, those there have been a couple other small trades. I don't even think they're worth talking about. No offense and any fans of those teams out there, but swapping picks and stuff is not really what I'm keen on.
No.
Jake Gensel, there's been some rumors in the rumor mill about Gensel, so he's probably the top free agent out there this offseason. We made our list last week. We don't need to dive back into it, but he was highly rated, and there's a lot of talk around where he ends up. Carolina now has a new general manager. Eric Tolsky is now the permanent GM there. And what I'm seeing, this is coming from sources like Saravelli and places on Twitter. I'm never going to call it X. That Gensel and Carolina are still talking. Carolina might want to use the option of, an 8th year to bring down the AAV. But there's a lot of other teams that are interested.
Yeah.
And maybe even a team that's still in the Stanley Cup Finals, Edmonton might be interested if they can't secure a guy like Draisaitl to come back.
Yeah, I did hear some rumors. A few talks between Chicago, Vancouver, and Boston for Jake Gensel a little bit last week.
I've heard the same thing. Yeah, so I think those are the teams, along with Carolina, that are certainly in the hunt currently. I mean, Jake's obviously still technically a Carolina Hurricane until July 1st.
Yes.
But as a pending, free agent, obviously his people are getting some feelers out. I don't think there were rumors that Carolina was going to look to trade Jake's rights away or something. I mean, nobody wants that. Nobody's going to give you more than a fifth, sixth round pick, or a seventh round pick for a stab at a free agent. It's not worth much. So I don't think Carolina is keen on that when there's still a chance of them bringing him in. What did he get paid though? I mean, certainly Chicago can afford it. Vancouver, I don't know. Boston probably has the cap space or would make it work. They're a team that always seems to make it work. But I mean, he's got to be what, $8.5 million a year, maybe a little bit less if he's on an 8-year deal.
Yep, I think that'd be about right. I think, for the Chicago Blackhawks, for an example, if he does land over there, I think that'd be a great fit for him if it's not Carolina. You have a young Connor Bedard, obviously. You want to build around him. You want to make sure that they're tough and also goal scoring. So when he's off the ice, there's a number two. Or when you have two guys on the ice, you're going to have that 1-2 punch. I think Chicago
Gensel plays well.
Remember
Gensel
Crosby?
plays well with top players. He played amazing with Crosby. He's played amazing with Aho.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him look at Bedard and just be salivating like, whoa, a payday, and I get to play with like the next. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to call him the next Sidney Crosby because that's not fair to either of them. But like the next young superstar in the NHL, and he's a centerman, so it's perfect. I mean, like that is Bedard as a centerman.
Mm-hmm.
So Gensel being a winger. We know he complements that high-end talent really well. We know that he has that high-end talent. I'd be heartbroken to see him leave Raleigh and go to Chicago, but at some point, Chicago has to start spending money on building around Bedard. Yeah. I know he's only had 1 year, but he's already one of the most skilled players in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, and I think for Jake Gensel, that would be a great landing spot for him. From the other two teams I mentioned, Boston, will just fit in. Look at David Pastrnak. He's looking for another guy on that wing side too. But Vancouver, they've shown that they can be the top competitive team without the struggles when they're healthy. And adding him with Elias Lindholm and Dakota Joshua.
Oh, man. They're not keeping Lindholm, you don't think, are they?
Oh, man, we talked about this last time. I don't know. The rumors have kind of fluttered off, but I've heard, Boston.
I've also heard Carolina wants him, but why would he go back to the team that traded him away?
Yeah. You never know.
I mean, he's also good friends with Jeff Skinner. We didn't have this on our talking points that we discussed before the show, but Jeff Skinner might be a buyout candidate.
Yeah, I've seen some rumors about that today. I think that's a great topic for our next one till we get more details.
Let's look at it next time. You're right. We don't want to speculate too much, but I will say this: Jeff Skinner, if you're listening to this podcast, you are my favorite NHL player. Take a deal, come back to Raleigh, score lots of goals in the red and black, man. Like, you were something else. And I don't care what anybody says about Jeff Skinner. I'll fight you if you don't like him.
I'm sure he'll get right on
it. Look. Jeff, also affectionately known in my household as El Jefe, the boss. You know what? He's a big fan of this podcast. We're going to get him a custom T-shirt. Jeff, if you're listening, you want the shirt, just reach out to us on social media. We'll hook you up, buddy. All right, moving on. We're going to move on to the next thing here. Let's do these together. So we're going to go into more rumor mill stuff briefly. Jacob Chychrun, does he leave Ottawa?
Yes. I don't have much on Jacob Chychrun's rumors right now. I understand the Flyers have spoken to Jacob Chychrun, but that's the amount of detail that I have. I know the Flyers.
He still has one more year on his contract, doesn't he?
He does, but I do have rumors that the Flyers have been looking for a solid defenseman, at least on their second
Yeah.
line, as well as the Chicago Blackhawks, and again, I hate to bring them back up again, in the Boston Bruins.
Man, Chikrin is a beast.
Yeah.
He has not been on a successful NHL club yet in his career, but when he gets on one, you can't do it alone, especially from the blue line. Like, not everybody's, Bobby Orr or Eric Carlson in their not Eric Carlson didn't even do it on his own. So we're gonna cut Chikrin some slack. I think he leaves Ottawa. Let's follow it. Let's keep an eye on it and see what happens for our next episode. Maybe we'll have some news on it. Same thing here with Linus Ullmark in Boston. Boston seems poised to make a move. Ullmark seems to be the odd guy out, even though that tandem has worked really well for them.
Mm-hmm. Really good.
Do you think that they move on? Not move on. Do you think they trade Ullmark to bring in an asset that maybe benefits them at, I don't know, center?
Now, when we talk about Ullmark, I was glad you added Ullmark to this list. I do have speculations with Ullmark. I've been hearing Ottawa, Detroit, and Colorado.
Interesting.
The reason for Detroit would be sending a prospect goalie to Boston, which I'm guessing it will be Lyons. Alex Lyons,
Who has been a good goalie, really. He has been a solid goalie
good goalie.
career.
Detroit has missed out on the playoffs due to 1 point, so I wouldn't be surprised going after a guy like Ullmark would be, a great addition. The Senators is looking for a 1-2 punch with Giannis Cupersolo, and then Colorado just needs someone to also help Georgiev and probably put him back in the backup situation.
You're right. Yeah. Interesting. A lot of teams want goaltending, and there's not a lot of goalies to go around, and there is just a level of randomness.
Not a lot.
There's a level, yeah. I mean, goalies vary even year to year. So we're going to keep watching that one. I think it would be interesting. I think Detroit is set up in net for the future, but I think a lot of teams are looking at it and saying we need 2 options in net minimum, and we need a guy we can call up or have around to go in when necessary.
Yeah,
we're going to see. I said this last episode too. We're going to see 3 goalies become the norm in the NHL, but you can't have, you can't have 3 starters. You need kind of 2 guys that can share it, or a 1A, 1B, and you need somebody there in case of injuries. So definitely a lot. The latest on Natchez, everybody catch that nice transition there, is that maybe there's a threat of an offer sheet, maybe even something from Montreal. That's I think a pretty light rumor. I don't think there's a lot of opportunity for teams to do that this offseason with the cap going up, but who knows?
Yeah, I haven't heard much about Marty Natchez this year, especially even for the Montreal Canadiens. I've been hearing some Jets, I've been hearing some Flames, and I've been hearing some Kraken.
Interesting.
For Marty Natchez.
What I've heard, take it with a grain of salt, but a lot of discussion, in the hockey Twitterverse has been that either a 3-team trade for Marty Natchez or potentially one of either Columbus for a Patrick Laine or Winnipeg for an Ehlers. I don't know if you're making that trade from Carolina's perspective. Are you getting a better player? I don't know. You're certainly, I think at best you're getting an equivalent player. So I don't know how keen the Canes are to do something like that, except for to maybe save on cap space. But we'll keep looking at it. I think Marty Natchez is an interesting one just because RFAs are kind of a thing again. Ever since Carolina and Montreal created some offer sheets, there's always room for a team to come in and do that. I mean, the cap is going up, so who knows? All right, let's wrap this up. We've got a couple other things to talk about. So Roenick is off the market in Vancouver, so they signed him to an 8-year deal. I mean, that was one of the teams that was rumored, for Marty Necas originally. It was maybe a Roenick for Marty Necas or something. That's a great deal for both sides. I think Roenick is going to be one of the best defensemen in the NHL over the next 5 years.
Yeah, he's been playing a lot of good hockey. Roenick has. He reminds me of a good 2009 and 2008 defenseman off those great Detroit Red Wings. How defensively they were, how great they were handling the puck. I think this was a really good idea for the Vancouver Canucks, especially for their future.
They either had to lock him up long term, or they had to move him for an equal asset that they could try to lock up long term. And good young, if I'm not mistaken, right-handed defenseman, right shooting defenseman, don't come along every day. Am I wrong? Is he a lefty?
No, he's a righty.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Look at that. I don't even need the facts up in front of me. Don't come at me. I know it all.
And fun fact, while bringing up Detroit, I also forgot he used to play for Detroit for about 5 to 6 seasons.
He did. That's where he was drafted. He was drafted by Detroit.
He reminds me of a Nicholas Lindstrom kind of guy. So
absolutely reminds me of that. I mean, he's not Nick Lidstrom. Nobody's Nick Lidstrom.
There's just some good elements from him.
But absolutely, he reminds me of that style of hockey. Surprised Detroit let him go. They love that stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so Barclay Goodrow.
It's
maybe not the most exciting thing to talk about, but it's super interesting because he's a guy that did score quite a bit in the playoffs. If I'm not mistaken, was it 6 goals, 8 assists? Something like that he put up?
Lines, yeah.
Good numbers. He's probably overpaid, at least by the Rangers cap structure. And he was a guy that had a modified no move clause or no trade list. And they kind of found a way around it.
Yeah.
San Jose wanted him. This is what's out there, right? San Jose wanted him. He said, no, I'm not going to San Jose, which a couple of years they could be a different team, but we all know where they finished last year. So he said no. Unfortunately, the Rangers turn around and Chris Drury dropped the hammer and said, okay, well, fine, we're putting you on waivers. And his modified no trade clause didn't cover that. So unfortunately, he got picked up by probably the team he wanted to go to the least. But he's going to be good there. He scores. I mean, he's not the best defensive player. He doesn't play great two-way hockey, but he's not. I don't think he's as much of a liability as Rangers fans pretend that he is. And if you perform in the playoffs, you're worth $3.5 million a year, in my opinion.
Yeah, just quickly glandering here at Goodrow here. This is probably his worst season he's also played in the NHL. Playing 80 games, only putting up 4 and 8 with 12 points for the year, which is not a very good stat. But what
were his playoff numbers?
Yeah, and then you're moving him back to San Jose after he's been playing there for about 4 to 5 seasons previously. Now, just to remind you, San Jose does have the first-round draft pick. Most likely he's picking up Celebrini from University of Boston. This is, again, we were just talking about earlier with the Connor Bedard situation. I think this is great for him. 1-2 punch with Goodrow. I don't see anything wrong with it. This could be potential trade bait probably later on midway through the season if it doesn't work out with Celebrini.
Fair. I think that's likely what happens. I mean, unfortunate that he's going somewhere maybe he didn't want to play again, but look, the weather's really nice in San Jose, so don't complain too much, Barkley.
And he's also a Stanley Cup champion. This last little touch there.
He is. I mean, he's made the playoffs how many years in a row? I mean, that streak might break, but but still, he is a veteran presence on a team that needs a veteran presence. So maybe he will thrive under that situation, and he might even be a guy that, I mean, maybe he wears the C for them for a little bit and brings the next generation into line. But so we've talked about this. One thing we didn't do, so I do want to go back to it. I apologize for everybody listening who's going to be annoyed by this, but LA Washington, I didn't grade that trade. You didn't grade that trade.
No.
So just recap it. Dubois from LA goes to Washington. Kemper from Washington goes to LA, a 1-for-1. I'm not going to lie. For LA, it's a C-. For Washington, it's a D. I don't think it makes Washington a better team. I think that It doesn't necessarily help with the problem of making the playoffs again next year, especially when it seems like the only concern is, and I support this, but it's the only goal is for Ovechkin to break the record while he's still at Capital. So
Okay.
I don't really know why they made that trade. They didn't need to make that trade. I know we talked about, maybe they need a centerman and stuff, but I just, I don't like it for Washington. I like it a little bit more for LA, a team that probably needs that goaltending. And Dubois was a guy that apparently they didn't want in the locker room anymore. So they got rid of him by adding something to their team. So at worst case scenario, they got better just based on that. And Washington added a player that I'm a little concerned about. So give me your grades. Like I said, C- for LA and a D for Washington.
We're very close. I'm going to give LA a C plus rather than a C minus, and I'm just going to stick with the D for Washington there. I think
It's
Darcy Kemper.
respectable.
Yeah, I think Darcy Kemper brings in a good. He's not old, but he brings in a veteran Stanley Cup winning morale back
He
to
plays good
LA.
hockey.
Plays great hockey. He's always healthy, as from what I remember. He can be a very healthy goaltending. I know he had a little minor issue, I think maybe this
Kirk
year.
Anderson.
Yeah, but I think Darcy Kemper can keep up and is a great 1-2 punch coming up in Washington.
Yeah, agreed. So, all right, that basically covers it for trades, grades, and free agents. All right, this is an interesting topic. I think I really want to hear what Daniel has to say. I think Daniel has not just good insight, but probably some strong opinions on this. So let's talk rebrands and Utah's temporary jersey and colors.
Utah.
Daniel, dive in here. Let us know what's going on. I've heard and seen that we've got at least 2 teams with a new look next year.
Yeah, I think I'll start with Utah. So Utah, I think the jerseys they put out met a lot of expectations, which was that not much was going to be done. We also get a glance at the template Fanatics is going to be using for the jerseys. It validates the whole, it's just what Adidas was doing, just we're changing out some labels. Kind of nice to see. I gotta admit though, for temporary jerseys, these things look kind of sharp. I don't know what it is that's selling me about this, but they look good. Obviously, I'd like to see something more elaborate for the next season. And I'd love personally to see purple introduced. I'm not sure what you guys think there, but I think mimicking the Jazz colorway would be an absolute win for the NHL team. And I also think, too, going into the naming that they're going to pick, they'll probably do what the Jazz did as well, where maybe it's more about it being Utah than the team name. Curious what you guys think on the Utah side of things.
Do you mind if I jump in there first, Ethan? Because I got a lot
ahead.
to say on this. Well, a couple of things. I mean, you nailed it with the purple. I really think the purple would just chef kiss on that color palette. I think this is a Utah team. I think that Ryan Smith has shown and Smith Entertainment Group has shown the focus is on making an identity around Utah sports. So that it includes the entire state. Obviously, they're based in Salt Lake City because, I don't know, 75% of the state lives in or around Salt Lake City. But I think they need to add purple. I think that it is exciting what they're doing. I mean, I wouldn't even be disappointed, like I said last time, if they were called the Utah Hockey Club. I want to see mountains on the jersey, and I mean those Jazz jerseys are nice, and nobody is really talking about the fact that they're the Jazz and they're in Utah because it's the Utah Jazz, yes, but it's just Utah's team. Those jerseys make sense. The new rebranding is beautiful for the Jazz, so I fully expect SEG is the type of company based on what I've seen so far. And there are other endeavors where they're going to try to create a unified brand image and be like, look, this is our state's teams, whether it's hockey or basketball or maybe someday MLB. So
I think you're pretty spot on. I
Yeah, I think. Oh, I'll
no,
let
you go ahead.
Ethan go
You go ahead.
there.
You touch there.
Oh, so I was just gonna say, there's a part of me too that's almost conspiring that they're saving purple for the next season
Mm.
just to kind of shift jersey sales because I think if you would have put purple in these, a lot of people would have just been content. So maybe
Well,
it's something
if
just
they
to
put
keep in the
purple
back
on it,
pocket.
it could have been the permanent jersey branding, everything. Like it's a good template, and I
Mhm.
don't mind the very European kind of HC part of it. Um,
Yeah.
just my opinion. I think next year this is their third jersey.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could see them keeping a slice of this going.
Maybe they add a purple strip or something. Maybe they do like a two-tone, like purple mountains in the background of the circle or something. But I think this jersey, maybe even the way it currently is, sticks around for a couple of years, kind of like the way that Vegas had their black jerseys the first year, because they obviously had planned to be the Knights or the Black Knights, and then they had to shift. So then, what, year two or three, they shifted to gold jerseys, but they kept the black as a third alternate. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I could see something similar. Honestly, I just really hope whatever name they pick, and honestly, I would actually be okay with Hockey Club. I wouldn't even be mad at that. I just want to see brand unity. It's one of the few situations where I think I want them to mimic almost exactly what a fellow team in a different sport in the same city is doing. Obviously,
well, there's not a lot of
Pittsburgh.
instances of owners that own both in one city.
Yeah, and I know Pittsburgh has different ownership between the teams, but there's kind of a beauty to just black and gold being this unified look.
That's kind of the city's vibe, like the city has that
Yeah.
identity. Yeah.
So why not
Now,
Utah? Do the purple, do that sky blue, have black for the accents. I think
right.
it would just fit so well.
Yeah, I mean, in Carolina, in Raleigh, what they kind of did, I don't know how much it was on purpose, but certainly it helps. The Hurricanes share their arena, PNC Arena, with the NC State Wolfpack basketball team. NC State, it's a well-known college in North Carolina. It's a well-known college in the NCAA for sports and athletics. They're red, and their rival UNC is blue. So the Hurricanes sharing a building with the Wolfpack makes sense that they be red and black because the Wolfpack are red and black. Just little things like that, where it's not the same ownership group, but that unity. I mean, the Charlotte Checkers were once involved with the Carolina Hurricanes organization, and seeing the Checkers uniforms mimic the Hurricanes uniforms was nice. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that is, and they have such a good opportunity for it. Utah's a beautiful state. They have the opportunity to really lean into what the Jazz have done, because the Jazz have moved away from the original Jazz logo.
Yeah, the Jazz, the name is almost just like it's there, but
Yeah,
they really could just be Utah Basketball Club. That's really where their branding sits at this point. They are very much Utah first.
yeah,
Jazz
yeah.
is
I
just
I like it. I really
formality.
do. Like I
Yeah,
like the way Ryan Smith runs his organizations, because when did the Jazz move to Salt Lake City? 20 years ago ish.
I think it was in the end of the 70s. I think it was 78 or 79.
Didn't they? Was it that? I'm sorry. Was it that recently or that far back? Sorry.
That far back.
I thought I apologize. Everybody can laugh at me. I'm not a basketball fan. I thought it was in the late 90s.
Oh, yeah, no, it
Maybe just
goes
because
way
that
before that.
their brand at that point was just so 90s. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not a basketball guy. But in anywho, I think that, yeah, they, like, nobody really thinks of them as the Jazz as much as they think of them as like Utah's basketball team. They have a nickname, and it's part of the franchise's history and stuff. But I don't think Ryan Smith is too concerned. Like, I don't think he necessarily cares if they call the team the Yeti or the Mammoth or the Blizzard. I think he cares more about, can we create a brand with that in mind? Does that fit the brand that we're building? And is it unique to us? And is it unique to Utah?
Yeah, if anything, I see whatever name they pick contributing more or less to the mascot, but not actually
Yeah,
going to shape the
nailed
jerseys
it.
all too much.
Yeah. I think that's it. I really do. Just based on, and maybe it's just because he bought a team called the Jazz and didn't want to have to, totally rebrand it. I think maybe if he could have, he might have just called them the Utah Coyotes. But of course, he doesn't own the rights to that brand. So
Yeah. Now, I got to say, moving on, there are some interesting rebrands that kind of popped out of nowhere. The expectation was with Fanatics taking over, there wasn't really room for some fresh rebrands. But it turns out two of the Southern California teams have been working on these things for about 2 or 3 years now. We have the LA Kings with their new look. We don't know what the jerseys look like yet. That'll likely be next week, but not a bad logo change. I think my opinion on it is I still kind of like the look of the original one this is based off of a bit more, but this is still very clean. There's a lot of loving little touches. I'm curious, what do you guys think of the Kings re-upping on essentially the 90s look, the Gretzky era?
yeah, the Gretzky era. You go ahead, Ethan. You jump into this one first.
I'm trying to like go back to what they used to look like. Okay, so when I'm taking a look back, I think this is a really good logo. To be strictly honest with you, I'm a big fan, just personally speaking. I like the old bright grays. I liked all that. I think it makes sense for the LA Kings. I'm kind of glad it didn't go with the purple. I'm not a big fan of that
We're gonna
purple and
fight.
yellow. That's just a me thing. I wasn't a big fan of that purple and yellow. But this, beautiful. It's short, simple, sweet. It brings like LA, keep it all simple. LOL. But I think this is a really good LA Kings logo.
It
Yeah,
is beautiful.
definitely.
They should have brought back the gold and purple.
Boo.
Look, all right. How do you have a team that's called the Kings and they don't have gold and purple as their color? I mean, you're royalty. You got a team in Vegas that's the Knights, and they're using gold, and you're not going to throw on some royal purple? I think that the black, silver, and purple could have been like just something extra. But I love the crown. I love the redesign. I've not been a fan of the LA modern font and stuff like their current jerseys days. I'm not been a fan of that logo. But I did like when they threw on the metallic silver helmets and things like that. I think those things are cool.
Yeah.
I just think they're maybe selling themselves a little short, being called the Kings and not having purple on their jerseys.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is obviously with the Lakers being their building mates, purple and gold, it would feel so right. And honestly, there have been some great Kings jerseys with those color schemes,
We
whether
sure
we're
have. And we just
reflecting
talked
on,
about brand unity.
yeah, and I mean, I think reflecting on the Marcel Dion years and even the reverse retro they did somewhat recently, purple and gold does look good, but I'm
I'd
gonna
be
throw a
satisfied
flag
if
on
they
the
took the
field.
current logo, the new logo, sorry, threw it on their reverse retro, like their reverse retros, and did something like that for a third or a new reverse retro look or something. It doesn't have to be a primary. I just think they need a jersey with purple, and I think they need to have purple metallic helmets for those games.
Yeah, well, I mean, when they did the reverse retro where they did the Gretzky era jerseys, but in the purple and gold, oh, those looked wonderful. I thought that
Beautiful,
was such a great
absolutely
look for
beautiful.
them.
Yes.
But I'm
So
still gonna throw the flag on the field here and say when they adopted the Raiders colors, it was just so sharp and different. Yes, they looked like the Raiders, but in hockey version. But it just works. I don't know what it is. It
it
is
is different.
dull
There's
in a
no other team that
sense.
has that kind of monochromatic look.
Yeah, and I think it is a good thing in their case. And I associate those colors with the best of what that team has offered because That's Gretzky. That's Luke. It's the height of their popularity in the sales of the team. And
Well, and it's
we're
also, I mean,
talking
that's what
Stanley
brought hockey
Cups.
to the U.S. really, or to non-traditional hockey markets, I should say. It was in the U.S., but to the South, southern states and things.
And that's sort of it. I think that logo being touched up and being done a bit differently and using that color scheme, there's too many positive associations. They did consult alumni and current players. I think
Yes.
all roads just led back to this. So I think there's just a majority rules scenario. I know there's always going to be a splice of the fan base wanting the purple and gold. And I think there's room for that in a third jersey.
Mm-hmm.
But their main look should be this. I think they got it right.
Even with the Raiders no longer even in California?
Yes, because you know what? There's still a huge fan base of Raiders fans, even just in LA. And they've been out of LA since I think 95. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it gives you
I
that
mean,
little splice of that.
At least they were in Northern California for a while after that.
Well, yeah. No, I think it's good to have that nod to the Raiders still.
Fair enough. We got to touch on the other one because the other one, the other rebrand that we're going to discuss is just quack.
There we go. There we go. Quack, quack, quack. I think this is the exact direction they should have moved in. Obviously, we don't have the full actual preview of the logo and everything, but things have leaked. It looks like they polished the original logo in all the right ways. There's a lot of kind of small visual details and noise that were removed. Some things were sharpened and boldened. They really did a loving job on this. I didn't think you could do too much to the logo. I always envisioned little touches done, but no, they kind of nail on the head with this. I think there's a wild amount of orange to stare at, so that's a bit of an adjustment. But
so I like the orange on the logo. I wish there was a little bit of that eggplant color in there myself.
Yeah, I'd argue, like I could see them doing a third in the original colorway. Just to
but they should
complement
keep
the whole look.
Like that logo with the orange eyes. Anybody who hasn't seen it, Google Anaheim Ducks rebrand. Oh, that logo! That what was the goalie's name from the TV show? There was a cartoon, Mighty Ducks.
I thought they just called it Mighty
Ducks. It was
Ducks.
the Mighty Ducks, the animated series, and who is the main character? We got to find this out. We really do. Story. Where it came from.
I mean, as you're searching that, what I'll say is this is exactly why they should be wearing this. Is even all the way until this point, people buy that Mighty Ducks merchandise, and we're years disconnected from a lot of kids knowing that brand.
You're right, but if you're a 90s kid.
Yeah, but I've worn hats with the Mighty Ducks logo.
Yes.
And we're talking, there's kids who see it and will point at that hat when I wear it. They recognize the look and they know that's a Disney thing. It's an NHL thing. It's just, there's a cool factor to it. So why not entertain that?
I honestly think they should go back to, and maybe they can't. Maybe they don't own the rights to the exact name or something because Disney doesn't own the team anymore. But they should be the Mighty Ducks, and they should be the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, and there should be eggplant on the jerseys. And I didn't really like the rebrand around 2007. I know that's when they won the Stanley Cup, but those black jerseys with the orange and goldish just looked awful. The Ducks logo, I was never a fan of the foot, not a fan of the word mark. But this is a team that its history is fun. Its history is amazing. Its history is, at least in my case, I think Daniel's for sure, our childhood. It is such a nostalgic piece. And I'm not even just talking about like the hockey team brand. I watched the cartoon. I had action figures. I watched the movies that, started the whole thing, the live action movies. And all I have to say is Emilio.
Yeah.
One thing I can really say about these Mighty Ducks jerseys, I remember when I was hearing rumors that the Ducks are doing rebranding, I was really looking for the eggplant that you were mentioning in the colorway. And then I saw the leak coming in our group chat, thanks to Daniel, or Daniel throwing it into our group chat.
Yes.
I just think these are wonderful jerseys. You're adding touches, like they have touches of that goal that they had on the previous jerseys. They are missing the eggplant, and just the minor touches, like jerseys apart. The gloves, nice touches on the fingers being orange. The band on top of your wrist strap is going to be orange as well. You have your home helmet, you have your away helmet, which are two different colors now, which you have the orange and you have the white. But for me, which would be really cool, is you have that like metallic orangey kind of helmet, and you can do like a vital sticker of wings going across, like a duck colorway. That would look pretty sick. But again, I was looking for that eggplant jersey. But again, from Daniel's thought, that would be a sick third jersey.
It would be. I just think lean into your history. You're a fun team. It's a team that I'm a Caniac. I'm going to be a Caniac until the day I die. Even if they move, I'll be, in denial. Which I don't think they're going to move.
No.
But the Ducks are a team that I would buy their merchandise just because I think it's cool.
Same.
So now that they've gone back and they're fully embracing, we'll call it the Mighty Duck look, even if it's not Mighty Duck in name. That's a hat I'd buy. That's a jersey I'd buy. Especially the away jerseys with the orange on it. I really like the away jerseys.
Mm.
Yeah. I think, no, it's just a smart change. And I love that they polished up the original logos. It's one of those, you didn't think it needed the alterations, but when you see the alterations, you get it. You just understand.
You didn't know it was broken
made
until you see it fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
no, I totally agree with you.
another thing, now I like the WebD logo. I know not everybody does.
Mhm.
It's nice that that's going to be their secondary logo. That's going to be what's on the
It's a
patch.
great shoulder logo.
Exactly. It's where
but that's all it's good. Like that's what it should be used for. It should not be on the front of a jersey. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and knowing the championship legacy is tied to that D, to throw that on the shoulder, it's geez Louise, guys. You know what? Hey, let's just leave it at that. Good on you, Anaheim.
Good on you, Anaheim. I might spend some money on your gear now. Yeah, no, it's sick. Everybody buy that kit and support the Ducks because maybe, just maybe, if everybody buys a jersey, they'll say, "What if we added eggplant?" All right.
Yeah, I can see it.
We've got one last thing that I want to go over, and I'm going to let Daniel take the lead on this one too, and we'll touch in on it, Ethan.
Yep.
Hockey in Arizona. I'm just going to say this,
Cheers.
and I'm sorry, Arizona fans. I kind of promised you guys that we might be a home for all 33 NHL franchises. Well, let it go. It's time to let it go. The rest of the world is done with hockey in Arizona. So, Daniel, let's talk about what's new in Arizona. Maybe for the last time.
Yeah, I think I have some split feelings on this, but the best way to put it is there was a land auction. The Coyotes were the only applicant, and the land auction was canceled.
Why? Why? Do you know why? Because I know why it was canceled.
So why was it canceled? I'll get you to answer that.
Canceled because the ownership group couldn't line up a dozen eggs in a carton, let alone line up all the paperwork and everything to purchase a property. So, Coyotes ownership comes in and they make it sound like it's guaranteed. We're going to go in. We're going to get this auction. Look, we're the only people on the list. We're going to buy this land. We're going to turn it into a hockey arena in an entertainment district. And we're going to have the Coyotes back. Well, in Arizona, apparently they need a special use permit for any auction, for any Arizona state land auction. Then the purchaser or the potential purchaser would have to get a special use permit. That permit would say, okay, we have the means and are able to actually put into place the building and the infrastructure that we say we're going to put into place. So you can't just buy a piece of land in Arizona from the state and say, yeah, we're going to turn it into a giant $10 million, a beautiful arena. You can't just say that. You've got to put your money where your mouth is and say, look, we have the ability.
That was a good Marvin the Martian, by the way.
You like that? I do that. So basically, the ownership group in Arizona couldn't cross a T or dot an I properly, so they had to delay the land auction. So it's canceled for now. There will be an auction at some point in the future, but basically we don't know when. And if you're hoping for, if you thought this was going to work out, look, I'm done. I'm done. And I know this is episode 2, so people are going to say, you're done already. Yeah, because this has been decades in the works. Nobody's been able to make it work in Arizona. There hasn't been a real ownership group that could buy the team and make it happen. Nobody's been able to build an arena. The people don't care enough about it. And I'm not talking about the fans of the Coyotes. I'm talking about your average Arizonan. They don't care. They don't want to pay the tax dollars towards it. And they just don't care enough about the hockey team or the sport to invest in it.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get there. And are there hockey fans? Yes. I mean, look, one of the best hockey players currently in the NHL is from Phoenix, Arizona, right? Or Scottsdale, or wherever Austin Matthews is actually from. They can make good hockey players. It can work there. I don't think it can work at an NHL level until there's a serious ownership group that actually knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess a few things to touch on. I'll start with, they do actually have good fans. As someone who's a Jets fan and has teased and intermingled with, the Coyotes fans, they actually are really dedicated, great fans. I think there was a lot to love still, despite not the best franchise history. And I think hockey can work in that state. I mean, they support the Roadrunners. Like, that is a team they get behind in Tucson there.
Yeah, but you're filling an AHL arena is a lot different, I'm sorry, than filling an NHL arena.
Yeah. I think what's at least the play in my head is, I don't see this working unless you're in the same facility as the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah.
That's the only way I see this working, is they're in a shared facility and they're in a convenient spot, prime location. If it's not that, it's not going to work. That's how I see it.
We've learned that, right? I mean, once they left Phoenix, everything changed for that franchise. It was always question marks, but it has been nothing but question marks since they left the city of Phoenix, and couldn't make it work anywhere else in the state. So, I mean, if Phoenix won't have you and the owner of the Suns won't have you, you got to give up for now, because you need somebody that can actually make it happen as far as an arena goes. And there's nobody currently, certainly not the current ownership group, that can or will make that actually a reality.
Yeah. Now, 5 years, I think, is what the NHL gave the ownership. Right. Do you think there is any point in this 5-year span that something is going to change for the better? Or is this just dead in the water?
The only thing that's going to change for the Arizona Coyotes is the ownership's underwear. I don't think it's going to be much happening in Arizona. I hate to say it. Arizona has always been my it's been my Leafs, my Yotes, because I love the logos. I love everything to do with the Coyotes. It's just the way everything's presented in game with the Arizona Coyotes and the Phoenix Coyotes at the time. And their jerseys, I had a few of them. I think this is it. I don't have any belief right now.
Yeah. For me, first of all, Kachina or bust. So those were the only good jerseys that
Kachinas, yeah. Sexy.
The Coyotes ever wore. And actually the jerseys they wore their last season, like this last season, were sharp. I like the Kachina, man. Like those are
Mm-hmm.
nice jerseys. That's a nice logo. It's
They have the
very
brand.
Arizona, but the brand was good. But when they did the rebrand to the like Screaming Wolf, and then just but they have the Arizona like written on it one year, and just like
Yeah.
weird rebrandings and weird decisions, and
Mm-hmm.
just nothing that really made sense. And I think it's that I'm sorry to say, I don't think there's been like a person that understood the sport that's really been involved there in Arizona
Oh.
to make it, last.
I mean,
I mean, the
I'll
league was
throw
involved
a
at one point, and
I'll throw a slight flag on the field with that one, considering Gretzky's been involved with the franchise. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
for
oddly
Short
enough,
term
one
though.
Gretzky is
season,
behind getting out of Phoenix and going to Glendale.
I don't think Gretzky had much to do with it besides he was like, I want to help the NHL and grow it, and because I mean, he helped
Yeah,
grow
he
the sport when he was on the ice into untraditional markets, right, or
Yeah.
non-traditional markets. So I think that was his passion for the sport, being like, I'll try to be part of the face of this rebrand and fixing it. It didn't work. He's not a
no.
coach,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
I
they've
think
got a
the
cool
only
history in
thing
some ways, but
the only thing I think if the Coyotes were to get a new team is the owner who currently has the rights sells it to somebody else who knows how to run a sports market in Arizona, which could be, I don't know who the owner of the Phoenix Suns is, but let's just say hypothetically that owner can buy them for probably cheaper than, we kind of expected it to be, and potentially bring the Coyotes to Phoenix to where will most likely be a better fit for them. But if that doesn't work, I have no hope.
yeah, I'll be honest. I think that's a pipe dream. I don't
Yeah,
think there's any interest.
that's a very hypothetical thing I
Yeah.
threw out
Oh no,
there.
I know. Yeah, I
Yeah.
just I would pour a big old pot of cold water in that and say that I don't see a future where that happens.
No,
But
because
that
I
is
think
how it
there's
would work.
renovations that would need to happen too.
That's a solution. I mean,
Yeah,
but that would be a solution. But
exactly.
you don't have that. I don't think you have that interest. Look, you'd be better off putting that team in Houston, or I don't know, Houston
Kansas
or
City.
Houston. Yeah, Kansas City, but mostly Houston.
Yeah.
Um, I think Houston. I think Dallas has been a show of how successful hockey can be in a state like Texas.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I guess just to kind of tap this off, I would say a good thing we should dive into next time is should the league even go past 32 teams? Because I'd argue
oh,
probably not in
I
the league's
definitely
best
want to get into that.
interest.
I don't think we have enough time today
No.
to even
No,
start that. That could be a
that's
whole
next time.
episode if the team could be
This would have us
34,
talking.
36. I don't think you make 30. 34 doesn't work. I think you have to go to 36. I'll leave it at that for my own opinion on
Yeah.
it for another episode.
Well,
But
maybe
I
we'll
think
get
we
to
have
we
that
should
enough
next
bring
on the
this
list
up
episode.
for
already.
next episode. I think this will probably be
Yeah.
our longest episode
If,
talking
if,
about
if
that.
people are still watching this,
Yep.
thank you. Sorry, I tried to pause myself for that. But if you're still watching, thank you. Let us know, right? If there's comment, like in the comment section on YouTube, or let us know on social media. Give us your opinions on everything we've talked about today. But so, do you want to hear us talk about, a 34 team NHL, 36 team NHL? There's some things that make it harder than you might think to just go to 34 teams, without saying too much, without giving away, the whole story on it. So let us know in the comments and let us know like what cities maybe should get NHL teams next, and then we will definitely dive into that on maybe the next episode or a future episode, because that's an interesting one.
Yeah. 100%.
Absolutely.
Well,
So
ladies and gentlemen,
I think
I
I
think
think we've covered pretty
yeah.
much everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go on for hours and hours. There's always hockey talk, but
100%.
we've covered a lot of ground. And I think if I can just say that the one lesson we've learned today, and anybody who listened to all 50 minutes of this is going to be like, yup, nailed it. I want more purple in the NHL. All
Fair.
right, take it away, Ethan. Tell the good people where to
Ladies
find us.
and
What to do.
gentlemen, I thank you guys for tuning in and listening to this podcast. Remember, I thank you guys for watching on Spotify or on YouTube, wherever you guys watch this, or even on TikTok shortly. We'll be getting the snippets out soon. Remind you guys, we get all of our info as much as we can. We make sure it is detailed and proper. We don't give you guys as much false information as we possibly can. We try to be 100% authenticated with a lot of our product that we provide here. We've obviously don't want to put out he said, she said conversations. We like to get your thoughts as well, bring out a conversation for you. So thank you guys for listening and chatting where you can.
Or maybe that's a future section of the podcast. Maybe we'll have a he said, she said section here
Maybe,
soon.
you never know.
Sorry.
I'll say it.
But yes, ladies and
We'll
gentlemen,
see.
thank you guys. And we'll see you guys on episode 3. Deuces.